Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for coming today. As mentioned, my name is Alicia Jalbert, and I'm the Manager of Community Partnerships at the Roux Institute. And I'm thrilled to be working with Ruth Kermish-Allen and Chad Dorsey to talk about what we're doing to promote data literacy across our communities, especially in the K-12 space, for about the next 15 minutes or so. I joined the Roux Institute about a year and a half ago after 10 years in Maine's K-12 space, really advocating for STEM and computer science education opportunities, not just for the communities that have resources for it, but for the entire state. I did this in one of Maine's largest districts that has about 40% students of color, 60% of students are on free and reduced lunch, and over 15 different languages spoken. When I started this role, less than 3% of students had access to computer science instruction during the school day. And over the next 4 years, I made it a mission so that over 75% of students K-12 have access to computer science during the school day. I say this to bring the lens of when we're talking about data citizenship and making sure these opportunities are accessible to everyone, that we truly are making sure everyone in Maine's population and New England's population and the country's population is recognized in this work. So I'm really thrilled to introduce both Ruth and Chad, who are making excellent strides in this space, to talk about what they've accomplished so far and what's next on the horizon.
Thanks so much, Alicia. It's a joy to be here. I am directing the Maine Mathematics and Science Alliance. We're a small nonprofit based in Maine, but we serve the entire country. The majority of our work is focused on rural districts, specifically within Maine and across the country. So this question about data literacy is a very important one. And having been in the STEM education research landscape for 2 decades now, about a decade ago, the term data literacy was very at the forefront of what are we thinking about in STEM education? How is it going to be moving things forward? And then it kind of got quiet for a little while. And now with the advent of AI and the quality of data that can go into AI and therefore the products that can come out of it, the tenor of the importance of data literacy is yet again rising to the forefront, which is very, very exciting for someone like myself. So I'll give you a little bit of information about Maine Mathematics and Science Alliance first, and then how I got there. Our organization works to advance equitable access to STEM education, K-12, all across the board. So no matter what form of educator you may consider yourself, within that pre-K through 12 sector, an informal educator working in the after-school or out-of-school environment, or an educator working within the formal K-12 classroom, we are really advocating and designing programs with those educators to think about how do we make STEM education as a broad scale, mathematics, data literacy, computer science, science on its own, more tangible and relevant for students of many different genres to think about what makes it relevant to them and why should they care. What are the different kinds of research that we as an organization can do to think about how educators are going to be able to learn material and therefore translate it and share that material and those kinds of new STEM concepts with their students to get the biggest bang for our investment of time and their investment of time. Because we all know there's so much being asked of educators today, so much layered, one thing on top of another, on top of another for these educators to make happen. How is it that we are going to really advocate for the importance of STEM for their kids and for their communities? And the majority of our work as a research-based nonprofit is to partner hand in hand with those educators, understand their needs, understand their cultural contexts, and look for opportunities within the communities that they serve to pull back that almost that veil of how does STEM already exist and how are they already utilizing STEM concepts in their communities today. And I think we'll find lots of examples, especially from Hamit's publication around the data literate citizen, which is something that I already know many rural communities across Maine are already thinking about. How are we going to prepare our children to take on the leadership roles and make the decisions that they need to in the coming years? And I think data literacy and the concept of data citizen is first and foremost within that. So I'm excited to talk a little bit more. And I come from an education background myself, started in the forest actually the sustainable forestry research world, turned educator, loved doing the education with high school and middle school students in rural communities across Maine, and then turned learning scientist and researcher to understand how can we really move forward these strategies across the board.
That's great. So I wanted to make sure that, here we go. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted the connection to that. Ruth and I are not only friends, but share a lot of legacy. I worked at the Maine Math and Science Alliance for a good number of years before my last 15 years at the Concord Consortium. Like Ruth, I'm a physicist by training, an educator by vocation, and a geek by nature, and they all fit together in what the Concord Consortium does. We're focused on transforming STEM education through technology. So we're thinking about the ways technology can really make a difference for learning science, math, and engineering. And as a result, data has been at the heart of everything we've done from even before we were founded. Our founder was Bob Tinker, who took this thing called a probe or a sensor that was being used in industry and saw that there was this thing called an analog digital converter that might be a big deal, he thought. Went around and proselytized to people saying, you know, you could do that lab that you've been doing in 2 days in 30 seconds with this little tiny, thermocouple device, and helped transform a lot of the way people thought about data in the early days in STEM education. I was just working with an Apple IIe last night. One of our people is retiring from after, at 85 now in our company, and we're playing with some of this old equipment. Despite that, there's a complicated story to be told in all this, because you talk about flattening the curve. Education doesn't need flattening any curves. Education is slow. So it is very complicated and very hard to change things in education. People work in siloed, disciplines. They work in very specific and complicated bureaucracies, and they're doing the best they can with little resources. So everybody recognizes now, we've built a lot of credibility with the sort of value and importance of data in the world. So people over the last 10 years have come to recognize the importance of teaching kids about data and getting them to be able to use and work with it. But teachers are not well prepared for this. The making things happen in a way that is true to the essence of data science is complicated because it means working across disciplines, and that is very complicated in education. So that's been somewhat of a stumbling block. But I'm excited to say that we've seen a lot of change in the last 5 or 6 years as we've been working with this. We've had a National Academy study on K-12 data science education, where we just had a workshop on sort of the trajectories and learning progressions that need to happen across K-12 down in DC, funded by NSF and others. We're working toward a cross-field anchor conference that brings researchers, teachers, and curriculum developers together about a year from now. And so we're building sort of the essence of this. But there's a lot to be sort of moved forward as this all happens. So it's exciting work ahead, but it really focuses on what does it mean for teachers to understand and be able to do this for students in a way that builds their student skills toward that digital citizen that we're just seeing from Hamid.
And I think both of you work in a really interesting role where you are at the nexus of how do we upscale our current talent in the form of teachers and prepare the future workforce? What are some of the challenges and strengths you see in working with that particular population?
That's a great question. And I wonder, across the room, how many of you work with educators that serve K-12 students? Okay, good. So we've got quite a good population of educators or educator trainers out there. So I think one of the most interesting barriers that I've come to understand within the education space is when educators are getting trained, they have some methods courses, right? And oftentimes, those methods courses are focused in one particular area, especially at the high school and middle school level. So you're thinking about becoming a science teacher, you're going to go through science methods training. But you may not necessarily get a ton, and you may thinking about the same thing within language arts. But there are so many different ways that data weaves into every single content area. Educators at the high school level may say, well, I've gotten this particular expertise, but how would I weave in data? And when we're thinking about the K-8 world, specifically within rural context, more the K-5 world more generally, these educators are generalists. They need to understand all the different content areas to be able to share it with their students. And so asking them specifically, oh, you've got to learn specific data or math skills, oftentimes that can be a little bit scary because many times that these educators do not see that as a strong point of them for themselves. So how do we find, the most interesting component is, how do we find that entry point for any educator? What is something that gets them excited and intrigued about the process of understanding how data weaves into what they love to do in their classroom with their kids, to find that entry point for them? So that's just one potential opportunity. I think within the lower grades, the K-5 through K-8s, it's that interest area. Oftentimes within the high school world, it could potentially be experiences like the science fair. The Maine Mathematics and Science Alliance is one of the co-hosts of the Maine State Science Fair, where we have all across the board students doing real research, doing real data science, competing with each other, getting the most innovative research young minds of our rural state to compete against each other, and that is growing like wildfire. We have over 200 students, which is pretty big for a small state like Maine, competing at this level, and the level of data analytics and data science interests that they have, ranging everything from, horse diseases all the way through to robotics. All of them are utilizing data science in that in some way. So how we heighten that for students and their teachers, and how to do that is really, really important.
So I think it's a very important question. I think there are sort of three quick areas that maybe rise to the top. One is sort of what are we doing in tilling the soil? Another one is thinking about getting teachers talking, and then another one is about sort of the tools that we're providing. In the tilling the soil thing, I think about a story from, I'd like to take road trips with my kids and my father to get them connected to our country, and we drove through the panhandle of Texas for many hours a while, and I said, stop, don't look at your phone, look out the window at the nothing, just to recognize how much of it there is. And it sometimes feels like that's the place we're at when we're dealing with planting seeds right now. There's not a lot of groundwork, there's not a lot that seeds can grow. We really do need to do a lot of tilling the soil to prepare for this. So to some degree, the answer to that digital citizenship, to how do you get people to that digital citizen squared? Right now we're starting at squared 0 at about grade 9 or 10 when we start to deal with this. If we were starting with that in grade kindergarten 1, 2, we would have a whole lot more to be building on. So thinking about that long term and preparing that is one key. How do we do that? By getting teachers talking and thinking about what this means across disciplines, as I mentioned. Another quick story, Rachel is a teacher in a school in New York City who's project-based learning, working with students who are largely Hispanic, Latin, and thinking about project-based learning in social studies class. She's been working at this with a project we have. Just the other day, she started to talk with a science teacher who had gained some interest in this, and they're making connections across them. They're going to create bills around agriculture and food needs, and then present them across for the entire school. That kind of work takes time. It takes energy. We've been working directly with her to help her understand how to do that. Cultivating data sets takes a lot of time, as you all know, even more so for K-12. So a lot of those pieces, we need to think about the infrastructure to make connections and prepare that. And then the last piece is, this needs to happen with tools that are intentionally designed for education. Excel is not a data learning tool. In fact, it's even not, I would say, a data tool. It happens to be a thing you can put data in, but it doesn't provide insights into the nature of data, the way that students need to learn with them. It doesn't allow you to explore and make you can make a graph in Excel. I'll give you a 13-point step-by-step guide on how to do it. We have a data tool that takes one drag and drop thing, sort of step to instantly start to make things and find connections. We see people light up get interested in data in ways that they never would have when they have that power in front of them. But that needs to be out there more. It needs to be the core assumption. It needs to start from grade K all the way forward so that we can till that soil.
Can I just add a little bit to that? I think thinking about the tilling of the soil, and there are so many different potential entry points. So for example, even though it might not specifically be, we need to do a citizen science project in second grade. There are many, many different opportunities for educators to say, oh, look, they're doing a citizen science project about water quality, or we can get our kids outside looking at soil science. There are lots of those opportunities for kids to get outside, enjoy what they're doing, learn a topic that they need to, whether it's through citizen science or other components that will introduce them, even at those early ages, to concepts within data science. We need to help our teachers understand how those things that they really enjoy doing are different facets of data science, and then have them call that out and learn how to build those bridges between what they love now, what they need to know about data science, and how to translate that to their kiddos. So there are those multiple entry points. We just need to find them and help teachers identify them when they're doing them anyway.
Right, and I think that's one of the most fun parts about my role at the Roux Institute is bringing our expertise and our subject matter experts to organizations like yours and really bringing that to the forefront both for teachers and students. So for all the other subject matter experts in the room, I challenge you to think about what unique assets do you have that you can bring to your child's school district or to your public library to take these really challenging complex concepts and bring them to light in a whole new and inspiring way. And I wonder, Hamid, do we have time for a question? Oh, one question?
Special mic. Hey there, thank you. Within the STEM conversation, I've seen a lot of pivot to STEAM. So I'm curious about how you're integrating art into that journey to tailor to different populations and intercultural context and relevance.
That is an excellent question, and even though I personally don't use the STEM the STEAM word, I very truthfully believe strongly in integrating the arts and the language arts. So, for example, even thinking about how are we going to visualize data. We've been working with second graders and third graders that visualize data in really interesting ways. Same thing goes all the way up through. So that's only just one example. Again, meeting both the educator and the students where they're at, all of the kids within a team are going to be coming at it from different particular skills, different things that they really love to do, and how do we put that to the test and put that into practice when they're thinking about concepts in STEM and concepts in data.
Yeah, and I think it's just really key for kids and teachers to be seeing data everywhere and seeing the ability to work with it. We tend to talk about data fluency instead of literacy because a lot of education is about, can you read that graph? And that tends to distill things too much for people. But yeah, working with a project we have looking at language classification and data in English language arts classes. There's some great work that's happening thinking about data in arts specifically. And most of all, maybe the key notion of it, I think, is for people to expand their idea of data. Right now, they think about it as a particular number, but pictures are data, words are data. The Declaration of Independence is data. If we can get people to think about that, then they'll start to see the kinds of connections that can happen across arts and beyond.
And of course, like within the K-12 sector, there are the learning standards. So every single content area, we know what those kids need to be doing because we know what those learning standards are for each particular grade. And so how do we start there and then look at how to layer in the examples that Hamid had provided and these other concepts around data science across the entire interdisciplinary curriculum.
Thank you so much for your questions and your time.